He divorced her without knowing she owned a multi-billion-dollar company. His family humiliated her. No one in that courtroom realized something dangerous was about to happen. Not the judge, not the lawyers, not even Ethan Blackwood, the man about to divorce his wife. Because the woman standing quietly at the defense table wasn't losing a marriage. She was removing herself from the board. Hello, friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments where are you watching from. Emily Carter kept her hands folded, her face unreadable, calm, almost empty. That calm was unsettling if anyone had bothered to notice. Ethan didn't. He leaned back in his chair, tailored suit perfect, confident, effortless. This was just paperwork to him, a final step toward freedom. "Let's not drag this out," he said, his tone firm, impatient. "We're both adults." Adults? Emily swallowed. 3 years ago, he had said the same word, only then his voice was soft, hopeful. "We're adults. We'll figure life out together." Now it sounded like a verdict. Across the aisle, Emily's mother, Margaret Blackwood, watched Emily with open contempt. Her lips curved into a satisfied smile, the kind reserved for people who believed they had crushed someone quietly. "This should have happened sooner," Margaret whispered, not bothering to lower her voice. "She never belonged in our family." Emily felt the words press against her chest. Not because they were new, because they were finally ending. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Blackwood, do you agree to the divorce terms as presented?" Emily looked up. For a moment, the courtroom blurred into memories. Margaret inspecting her clothes on Thanksgiving. Ethan's sister laughing when Emily said she worked in consulting. The endless dinners where Emily stayed silent while they discussed deals she had personally orchestrated. "Yes," Emily said softly. "I agree." Margaret exhaled in triumph. Ethan's sister Lauren leaned forward. "She's not asking for spousal support, right? Just want to be clear." Emily didn't flinch. Ethan nodded. "She doesn't want anything." The judge paused. "Mrs. Blackwood, you understand that by signing this, you walk away without claims to assets, properties, or future earnings." Emily met Ethan's eyes the first time. There was nothing there. No guilt, no curiosity, no idea who she really was. "I understand," she said. Her pen moved smoothly across the paper. Signature complete. With that single motion, Emily Carter officially ceased to exist in the Blackwood world. Margaret stood abruptly. "Before she leaves," she said sharply, "I just want one thing clear." Emily stopped walking. Margaret approached her slowly, heels clicking like punctuation marks. "You were lucky," she said. "Lucky my son married you. Lucky you lived under this name. Don't walk out thinking you were anything more than tolerated." Ethan stared at the table. He didn't stop his mother. He never did. Something inside Emily shifted, not shattered, not exploded, hardened. "I was lucky once," Emily replied quietly, "for believing you were decent people." Margaret scoffed. "Don't flatter yourself." Emily turned and walked out. The courthouse doors closed behind her. Cold air hit her face. She exhaled for the first time in months. Her phone vibrated, then vibrated again. She checked the screen. SEC compliance, priority. Emily answered. "Yes." "Ms. Carter," a controlled voice said, "the Blackwood Group's merger approval depends on your confirmation.
If you withdraw support, the deal collapses within 48 hours. Emily's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something sharper. Freeze it, she said. A pause. Understood. The call ended. She stood still on the courthouse steps. Inside, Ethan Blackwood believed he had escaped a burden. Inside, Margaret believed she had erased a mistake. Inside, no one realized the structure holding their empire together had just quietly stepped away. A black SUV pulled up. The driver stepped out immediately. "Miss Carter." People stared. Emily didn't. As she slid into the back seat, her phone lit up again. Ethan Blackwood, incoming call. She stared at the name. 3 years of marriage reduced to a glowing screen. She declined the call. Outside the window, the city moved like nothing had changed. But Emily knew better. She wasn't wealthy, she was embedded. Contracts, regulators, supply chains, decision-makers who answered her calls before answering their own boards. And the Blackwoods? They were about to learn the difference between money and control. The SUV merged into traffic. Emily looked ahead. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. Ethan thinks he walked away clean. His family thinks she was disposable. They don't know the system they depend on answers to her. And when Emily Carter decides to pull the threads, everything they built will unravel. The first call Ethan receives that makes him realize the divorce wasn't the end. It was the beginning.
Ethan Blackwood was halfway through a celebratory lunch when his phone vibrated. Once. He ignored it. The wine had just arrived. Lauren was laughing. The tension of the divorce was finally behind him. Then the phone vibrated again. Ethan frowned. Across the table, Lauren tilted her head. "Who keeps calling during lunch?" Ethan glanced down. Jonathan Hale, CFO, Blackwood Group. Jonathan never called twice. Ethan answered. "What's going on?" Silence. Not static, not a bad connection. Silence. "Jonathan," Ethan said, sharper now. "Define situation." A breath came through the line. "Ethan, the Meridian acquisition has been frozen." Ethan laughed once. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." The laughter died in his throat. "That deal cleared regulatory review," Ethan said. "We signed off last week." "Yes," Jonathan replied carefully. "The authorization didn't fail." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "It was withdrawn." The table seemed to tilt slightly. "Withdrawed?" Ethan said. "By who?" Another pause, longer this time. Jonathan lowered his voice. "Emily Carter." The name landed heavier than expected. Ethan stood so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "What?" he said. "That's not possible." Lauren blinked. "Who?" Ethan swallowed. "My ex-wife." Jonathan continued, words coming faster now. "She wasn't just a consultant, Ethan. Her confirmation was embedded in the compliance framework. Without it, the SEC flags the entire deal." Ethan felt cold spread through his chest. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that my ex-wife just shut down a $12 billion acquisition?" "Yes." Lauren's face drained. "She wore the same coat for 3 years." Ethan snapped, "Enough." Jonathan wasn't finished. "2 board advisors have stopped returning calls. One of them said, and I quote, 'We're waiting to see how Ms. Carter proceeds.'" Ms. Carter. Not Emily, not his wife, not the quiet woman who sat silently through family dinners. Ethan ended the call. Margaret Blackwood was already furious when he got home.
"What do you mean the deal is frozen?" she demanded. "That acquisition was foundational." Ethan loosened his tie, hands unsteady. It was Emily. Margaret scoffed. "That girl barely understood our business."
"That's what we assumed," Ethan said. Lauren paced. "No, this doesn't make sense." Ethan didn't answer immediately, because suddenly, memories were rearranging themselves. Emily stepping out during dinners for work calls. Emily correcting legal language under her breath. Emily once saying calmly, "Some systems don't need loud leaders." He had laughed then. Margaret's voice sharpened. "You're saying she had power over us?" Ethan looked up. "She wasn't over us," he said. "She was holding things together." The room went quiet. Lauren stopped pacing. Margaret sat down slowly. "She wouldn't dare touch us," Margaret said. "Not after everything." Ethan thought of the courtroom, of how easily Emily signed away everything. "No," he said quietly. "She didn't touch us." Lauren frowned. "Then what did she do?" Ethan's voice was flat. "She let go." Emily Carter stood in a glass-walled office overlooking the city. Screens glowed, data moved, people waited. Her assistant, Rachel, stood beside her tablet. The Blackwood Group requested an emergency meeting. Emily didn't turn around. Denied. They escalated through intermediaries. Noted. Rachel hesitated. "We will face pushback from 2 regulators." Emily nodded once. "I know." She walked to her desk. "Begin Phase 1 redistribution, quietly." Rachel's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. It was after midnight when Ethan's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered immediately. "Emily?" A pause. "You don't get to call me that anymore, Ethan." Her voice was calm, controlled, distant. "What do you want?" he asked. Another pause. Measured. "I already have it." His chest tightened. "Then why are you doing this?" "I'm not doing anything to you," Emily said. "I'm just no longer holding it together for you." The line went dead. Ethan stared at the phone. For the first time since the divorce, something real settled in. Not anger, not regret. Fear. Because Emily Carter wasn't emotional. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't improvising. She was precise, and precision was what dismantled empires. Ethan thought the divorce ended his problem. He doesn't realize it activated one. Emily Carter isn't reacting. She's executing. Next, she won't freeze deals. She'll decide who stays solvent. The warning Emily's mother gave her years ago, and the mistake the Blackwoods made before they ever met her. Emily Carter learned early that power never announces itself. It hides, it waits, and when it's needed, it moves quietly. Her mother taught her that, but only after learning the lesson too late. 16 years earlier, Emily was 19, sitting in a hospital corridor that smelled like disinfectant and regret. Her mother, Claire Carter, lay unconscious behind a glass door. A doctor stood nearby, voice neutral, careful. "She collapsed at work," he said. "Stress-induced cardiac event." Emily nodded, numb. Claire Carter had been a compliance strategist, brilliant, meticulous, invisible, the kind of woman who built systems others took credit for. The night before, Claire had sat at the kitchen table, papers spread out, hands trembling. "They want me to sign off on something I didn't approve," she whispered. "It's legal on paper, but if it fails, they'll blame me." "Then don't sign," Emily said.
Claire smiled, tired. You think it's that simple? The next day, she collapsed. Her career ended quietly. The men above her were promoted. Years later, Claire sat across from Emily in their small apartment, hands wrapped around a mug she no longer finished. "Promise me something," her mother said. Emily looked up from her laptop. "Never be the one whose name is convenient," Claire said. "If you're inside a system, make sure you're essential." Emily didn't fully understand then. She does now. Present day. Emily stood in her office, rain streaking down the glass walls. Rachel hovered nearby, tablet in hand. "Miss Carter, regulators in D.C. are pushing back harder than expected." Emily didn't turn. "How hard?" "They're questioning the independence of our authority." Emily's jaw tightened. That was the line. Power only worked as long as no one questioned why it worked. "If this escalates to formal review, we'll have to expose parts of the framework." Exposure was dangerous. Emily closed her eyes briefly. "I won't sacrifice the structure," she said. "Pull back slightly." Rachel looked surprised. "The Blackwoods will recover." Emily nodded once. "She could win today," she said calmly, "but winning today isn't the goal." Rachel understood. Across town, Ethan Blackwood sat with Jonathan Hale and 2 board members. Everyone looked tired. "This isn't random," Jonathan said. "She's not attacking, she's testing boundaries." Ethan leaned forward. "She always does that. She watches first." One board member frowned. "Then why pull back now?" Ethan hesitated. "Because Emily didn't overplay her hand," which meant, for the first time, he thought she might stop. Emily's phone rang late that night. An old number. She answered. "Emily?" Claire's voice said softly. "I saw the news." Emily closed her eyes. "I told you not to get involved with powerful families," her mother continued. "They don't forgive loss of control." "I'm not inside their family anymore," Emily said. "No," Claire replied gently. "You're inside their fear." Silence stretched. "They'll look for leverage," Claire warned, "and they'll find it." Emily swallowed. "I know." "Do you?" Claire asked. "Because power always asks for payment." The call ended. Emily stared at the city lights. There was always a cost. The next morning, Rachel rushed in. "Miss Carter, someone filed a motion challenging your authority across 3 regulatory zones." Emily's pulse spiked. "Who?" Rachel hesitated. "The Blackwood Group, through proxies." Emily went still. "They're trying to expose the framework," Rachel said. "If it goes public, they'll burn everything," Emily finished, "including her. Power could survive scrutiny. People rarely did." Emily picked up her phone. "Activate contingency B," she said. A voice on the other end went quiet. "That option carries consequences," it said. "Consequences we swore never to trigger." Emily closed her eyes. "I know." "And if it fails?" She paused. "Then I pay the price." She ended the call. For the first time since the divorce, uncertainty pressed in. Not fear, risk. Emily Carter didn't build power to dominate. She built it to survive. But survival always demands proof. And now the Blackwoods aren't just threatening her system. They're threatening the one thing she never reinforced. Emily makes a move that costs her something real, and Ethan realizes too late where his leverage actually is. The first loss didn't make headlines. That was how Emily knew it mattered. Rachel stood in the doorway, posture rigid, voice carefully neutral, but not calm.
They've suspended our discretionary clearance in Zone 3. Emily looked up slowly. Suspended or revoked? Suspended, pending investigation. Emily exhaled once. Zone 3 wasn't the largest jurisdiction. It wasn't the most profitable, but it was the keystone. Everything else rested on it quietly. How did they justify it? Emily asked. Rachel hesitated. They cited conflict of interest exposure and personal entanglements. Emily stilled. Personal. That was new. 2 hours later, Emily sat alone in a secure conference room. She had anticipated regulators. She had anticipated resistance. She had not anticipated history. The document lay open in front of her. Marriage Disclosure Amendment. Filed. Her name. Ethan's name. A thin, immaculate paper trail. Legal, polite, lethal. She had reinforced systems, diversified authority, insulated operations, but she had never fortified the past, her blind spot. Across town, Ethan Blackwood felt something unfamiliar. Momentum. Jonathan Hale placed a file on the table. We didn't file this directly. A third party flagged it, but it creates enough noise to slow her down. Ethan scanned the pages. His marriage, his divorce, his signature. She never disclosed overlap, a board member said. That gives us plausible challenge. Ethan leaned back. For the first time, Emily wasn't ahead of the curve. She was reacting, which meant she'll have to engage, Ethan said quietly. Margaret smiled for the first time in weeks. I told you, no one is untouchable. Ethan didn't return the smile, because pressure never made Emily reckless. It made her precise, and precision didn't panic. Emily's phone buzzed. Ethan Blackwood, incoming call. She stared at it for a beat longer than she should have, then answered. You're testing the wrong thing, she said calmly. Ethan's voice came measured, careful, confident again. You should have disclosed the marriage, he said. This could have stayed clean. Emily's eyes flicked to the document. You weaponized paperwork, she replied. Congratulations. You weaponized silence first, Ethan said. I didn't even know who I was married to. That landed. Not as accusation, as truth. I would have supported you, he added, once I understood the limits. There it was. Emily said nothing. They're asking questions now, Ethan continued, about influence, about proximity, about motive. You think this gives you control? Emily asked. No, Ethan said. I think it buys me time. Time was expensive. I want a meeting, he said. Neutral ground. Silence. Decline, he added softly, and this becomes public review. Emily closed her eyes once. I'll send a location, she said. The call ended. The meeting took place in a private conference suite overlooking the river. No lawyers, no assistants, no protection. Ethan arrived first. Emily entered without hesitation. For a moment, neither spoke. You look the same, Ethan said. Emily didn't respond. You built all this and never told me. You never asked, she said. I would have adapted, Ethan replied. No, Emily said quietly. You would have tried to manage me. The silence sharpened. This doesn't have to turn destructive, Ethan said. It already has, Emily replied. You just didn't feel it yet. Ethan slid a document across the table. Zone 3, suspension extension.
"I don't want to destroy you," he said, "but I will protect my family." Emily looked at the paper. "This leverage works once," she said. "After that, it collapses." "Once is enough," Ethan replied. Later that night, Emily sat alone in her office. Rachel stood nearby. "We lost 2 advisors. They're distancing themselves." Emily nodded. Contingency B had stabilized the system, but it had cost her trust capital, the rarest currency. "Ms. Carter," Rachel said carefully, "if this escalates, they may go after Claire." Emily froze. "That's not leverage," she said quietly. "That's a mistake." Rachel didn't disagree. Emily walked to the window. For the first time, she allowed the truth to surface. She had built power to survive strangers. She had not built it to survive intimacy. Ethan knew her history, her silence, her patterns. That made him dangerous in a way regulators never could. Her phone buzzed again. A message. "Ethan, we don't have to be enemies." Emily typed back. "Emily, we were never equals." She sent it. And then she made a call she had sworn she would never make. Emily Carter just paid for control with something she can't replace. Trust is eroding, visibility is rising, and Ethan has leverage, for now. But he's made one fatal assumption, that Emily will keep playing defense. The call Emily makes that changes the rules and why Ethan's leverage already has an expiration date.
The call connected on the 3rd ring. "I told you never to contact me again." Emily didn't apologize. "I need you," she said. She realized this wasn't a call for help. It was a countdown. Silence followed. Then a voice, older, precise, irritated. "I always do," Daniel Wright replied, "and it's never for something small." Daniel Wright had never been her ally. He had been her constraint. Former federal ethics counsel, architect of half the doctrines Emily now operated within. The man who taught her that power collapsed the moment it asked for permission. "You said if I ever triggered contingency B," Emily said, "I'd be choosing exposure." Daniel exhaled. "I said you'd be choosing a clock." Emily closed her eyes. "How long?" 30 days, he said. 30 days before everyone started asking the wrong questions. Emily's jaw tightened. "Then I need immunity." Daniel laughed once. "You don't ask for immunity, you build inevitability." Emily waited. "Who do you want protected?" Daniel asked. "My mother." "And yourself?" Emily paused. "Not if it compromises the structure." Silence. "You'd let yourself burn to preserve the system," Daniel said. "I already have," Emily replied. The line disconnected. Ethan Blackwood believed he had 14 days. That was the window his advisors gave him. Enough time to pressure, enough time to negotiate, enough time to extract concessions. He didn't notice the silence spreading. 2 calls went unanswered, then 3. Then Jonathan Hale entered his office, pale. "We have a problem." Ethan leaned back. "Define problem." "The review timeline changed. It's no longer staggered," Jonathan said. Ethan frowned. "That's not procedural." Jonathan met his eyes. "It's structural." And just like that, Ethan felt it. Not panic, compression. Emily stood before a room she had avoided her entire career. Glass walls, graining lights, observers who didn't answer to anyone she knew. The ethics oversight panel. Rachel stood behind her, tense. "Once this starts, you won't control the pace," Rachel whispered. Emily nodded. "That's the point." A panelist leaned forward. "Miss Carter, you voluntarily requested comprehensive audit." "Yes." "Why?" "Because partial truth destabilizes systems, full truth tests them." A panelist exchanged a look with another. Not agreement, calculation. Ethan arrived at the emergency board meeting already irritated.
"This is posturing," Margaret snapped. "She's bluffing." Ethan didn't answer, because Emily never bluffed. Jonathan spoke carefully. "The audit isn't targeting us directly. Yet," Margaret said. "But it is mapping influence paths, including marital proximity, legacy leverage, and retaliatory exposure." Ethan's stomach tightened. That means," Jonathan said, "your leverage expires the moment the audit completes." Margaret stood. "Then stop it." Ethan exhaled slowly. "You can't stop a voluntary audit, not without admitting guilt." Silence fell. For the first time, Ethan understood his mistake. He assumed Emily feared loss. She feared corruption. Ethan called her again. She answered immediately. "You escalated." "No," Emily replied. "I clarified." "You burned your insulation. Why?" "Because you misunderstood what I was protecting." "And what's that?" "The system," Emily said, "from people who think proximity equals ownership." "You think this makes you untouchable?" Ethan asked. "No, it makes you irrelevant." Her hand tightened around the phone, just once. "When the audit ends, you won't lose your company." Ethan frowned. "Then what do I lose?" "The belief," Emily said, "that you were ever in control." She hung up. The next morning, the news moved quietly, not about Emily, about process reform, oversight consolidation, disclosure tightening, influence mapping. No villains, no headlines, just doors closing. Ethan watched from his office window. He hadn't been defeated, he'd been outgrown. Emily didn't destroy Ethan's leverage, she made it expire. But now that everything is visible, the one person who never needed leverage is about to step forward, the player neither Emily nor Ethan accounted for, and the truth about who really benefited from the marriage.
Emily sat in her office, staring at the city lights. For the first time in weeks, the glow didn't calm her. A knock at the door. "Miss Carter?" Rachel said, cautiously. "There's someone here to see you. They claim it's urgent." Emily frowned. "No one—" The door opened. A man stepped in, tall, confident, impossibly calm. Dark suit, steel blue eyes. "Mr. Anders," Rachel whispered. Emily froze. Alexander Anders, her ex-husband's former business partner, the one person who had benefited from her marriage before Ethan even signed the papers. He didn't wait for introductions. "Emily Carter," he said. "You've done well, outgrown the obvious players, cleaned up the system. Very impressive." Emily's lips pressed thin. "What do you want?" Anders smiled, small and cruel. "I want what you never accounted for." Emily's mind raced. The marriage, the filings, the exposure. "You already had leverage," Anders continued. "Now you have none." Rachel shifted nervously. "Miss Carter? He's not here for a discussion." Emily's gaze sharpened. "I know." Anders took a single step closer. "Your mother, your advisors, even your own conscience, they're limited. You protected the structure, brilliant, but you didn't protect everything, and some things can't be audited." Her hand trembled slightly, just once. For the first time, Emily felt the instinct she had trained out of herself. Fear, not of loss, but of consequence. "You will learn," Anders said calmly, "that control has blind spots. You signed off on 3 decisions during the marriage that redirected capital through my firms. You thought it was insulation. It was amplification." Emily's breath caught. "You didn't see it then," Anders continued, voice low, deliberate. "But now I'm here, and I get to decide what comes next." Rachel moved a step closer. "Miss Carter?" Emily waved her back, eyes fixed on Anders. "I know." Across town,
Ethan Blackwood was unaware Anders had entered the frame. He sat in his office, staring at charts and emails. He had assumed Emily's moves were the only threats he faced. He had assumed control existed in isolation. He was wrong. Emily called Rachel. "We need a full risk assessment. Discretionary authority, regulatory blind spots, everything Anders could leverage." Rachel hesitated. "Some of this is outside even our frameworks." Emily's gaze hardened. "I know. That's why we act fast." Even as she spoke, a cold realization settled in. The cost of victory wasn't monetary, it wasn't political, it was personal. That evening, Emily met Anders on a private rooftop. No cameras, no lawyers. Anders smiled. "You understand now why I'm here." Emily didn't answer. She didn't move. "You preserved the system. Brilliant, but you forgot one thing. Systems are only as strong as the people inside them, and some people you can't predict, you can't control." Emily finally spoke. "And what do you want from me?" Anders leaned close, voice low. "Not what you think. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to reframe everything, to make you consider what happens when the person you thought irrelevant suddenly holds your history as leverage." Emily's stomach sank. The marriage she had assumed was over, the influence she thought neutralized, it was now Anders' weapon. Her mind raced, calculations, systems, contingencies, but one truth hit harder than any algorithm. She couldn't audit her own fear. Emily's phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Any movement? You're still in control, right?" She didn't respond. For the first time, she realized she wasn't in full control. She had built her career around predictability, rules, and systems. But Anders didn't play by rules. He didn't need leverage. He needed choice. And Emily now had to make one. Protect the system, protect the people she loved, protect herself. And she couldn't have all three. Her hand hovered over the phone. Her mind raced. Her jaw tightened. This decision would break her rules, and it would leave a permanent scar. Emily Carter survived regulators, audits, and her ex-husband. Now she faces someone who doesn't play by ethics, structure, or loyalty. Anders doesn't want Emily's power. He wants her to choose who deserves it. For the first time, control isn't an equation, it's a moral gamble, and the choice she makes will have consequences she cannot audit away. Emily's first true personal sacrifice, and the cost that even her systems cannot prevent.
Emily sat alone in her office, the city lights flickering against glass walls like distant alarms. She hadn't slept. She hadn't moved. Alexander Anders' words echoed. "I want you to choose who deserves it. Not money, not power, people." Her systems, her audits, spreadsheets, redundancies were useless here. Her hand hovered over the phone. Ethan's name flashed. Her mother's number sat above it. She knew the choice. Someone had to be sacrificed. Rachel appeared at the door. "Emily, Anders is moving faster than expected. He has access to everything, the files, the historical transactions, even board members who owe him favors." Emily's jaw tightened. "I know." Rachel's voice dropped. "Your mother, she's at risk. Ethan, he could be drawn in too." Emily swallowed. Her mind calculated contingencies, second guesses, probabilities. But one truth cut through all of them. She couldn't save everyone. The call to Anders came from a secure line. Her hands trembled slightly. Fear, not for herself, but for the people she loved, pressed against her chest. "You've built a nice system," Anders said. "Predictable, precise, elegant." Emily's voice was steady but thin. "Stop. What do you want?" "Choice," he said.
not compliance, not surrender, just choice. Who matters? Who survives? Her mind flashed to Ethan, to Rachel, to her mother. "You don't get to threaten them," she said. "I don't threaten," Anders replied, calm as ice. "I clarify." Emily dialed her mother's number first. The line didn't ring. It no longer existed. Her stomach dropped. She had sacrificed her mother under Anders's control, permanently, and there was nothing she could do to reverse it. Her breath caught. Her hand shook. This was the cost of playing by rules that only worked in theory. Anders's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "You chose correctly," he said, inhumanly calm. "She would have slowed you down." No taunt, no satisfaction, just cold, absolute judgment. Emily realized Anders didn't need to destroy her. He only needed her compliance with consequences she couldn't prevent. Rachel approached cautiously. "Emily." She couldn't finish. There was nothing to say. Ethan's secure message flashed on her phone. "Any movement? You're still in control, right?" Emily's fingers hovered over it. She didn't answer. Not yet. For the first time, she understood. Control is no longer a system. It's a moral gamble. And tonight, she had lost something she couldn't audit. Her mother, gone from all secure channels, out of reach. Her eyes blurred. A single tear traced down her cheek before she wiped it away. The city lights outside were beautiful, indifferent. They did not comfort her. Anders's words lingered. "You chose correctly. She would have slowed you down." The inhumanity of that sentence pressed into her mind like ice. No apology, no closure, just absolute consequence. Emily Carter left the office abruptly, her coat pulled tight against the cold, the weight of irreversible loss pressing her forward. She did not look back. No conversation, no reflection. Pain lingered. Moral failure lingered. And in the silence, she understood something terrifying. The next choice would be worse. Emily Carter preserved structures, ensured Ethan's survival, and maintained some control, but at a cost no system could calculate. Her mother is now permanently under Anders' control. Anders is inhumanly indifferent, morally unbound. Emily's own conscience is fractured. Control is no longer an equation. It's a burden, and Anders has just rewritten the rules. Fallout. How Emily navigates betrayal, exposure, and a threat even Anders didn't anticipate.
Emily returned to her office late that night. The city had gone quiet, but inside her mind raced. Her mother's number still didn't exist. Every secure line she had ever controlled could no longer reach her. The sacrifice she had made was absolute. Rachel sat at the desk, reviewing the latest updates. "Emily, Anders moved faster than we anticipated. He's already consolidated control over several of the portfolios linked to your mother's accounts. She's inaccessible, permanently," Rachel said quietly. Emily didn't respond. She felt the weight pressing down, like the room itself had grown heavier. Every system, every safeguard, every contingency she had built, useless. Her thoughts flickered to a minor irregularity she had noticed weeks ago. A name buried in a footnote she had dismissed at the time. Valeria Sinclair. It had seemed inconsequential, a minor shareholder in a small subsidiary. Now, with Anders maneuvering, that name carried weight. And suddenly, it wasn't small anymore. Emily's stomach twisted. She realized that some threads she had ignored were no longer optional. They were a force in motion, unstoppable. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Emily, something's happening. I don't have the full picture, but it's urgent." She opened the secure feed. Charts she didn't recognize, transactions she hadn't authorized, and at the top, Valeria Sinclair. Her hand shook slightly.
She almost reached for the phone to call her mother again, then remembered there was no one to answer. A microfracture, small but undeniable. Her jaw clenched. She exhaled slowly, trying to center herself. Control was gone. Systems were failing. Consequences were unfolding in real time. Anders' voice lingered in her mind. You chose correctly. She would have slowed you down. Inhuman, indifferent, terrifying. Emily looked out over the city. The lights flickered like distant stars, indifferent and feeling less. Her mother lost, Anders' manipulation looming, and an unforeseen player emerging. She realized something crucial. Her greatest enemy wasn't Anders, it was the chaos he had revealed and the forces she had ignored before. Her systems, her ethics, her structures were fractured. Her certainty had evaporated. The ground beneath her had shifted. She sat down, motionless, letting the silence press against her. No words, no speeches, no calculated decisions yet. Only the awareness. Everything she had taken for granted was now unstable. And Valeria Sinclair's name, once buried and dismissed, would define her next move. Emily Carter's control was no longer about prediction or leverage. It was about surviving the unseen, unpredictable, and morally indifferent. Emily survived sacrifice, betrayal, and calculated threats. But Anders' moral indifference created a blind spot, and now a previously ignored threat emerges: Valeria Sinclair. Systems she trusted are compromised. The stakes are personal, ethical, and irreversible. Control is no longer just a calculation, it's a fight for survival against the unseen. Emily must confront Valeria, navigate Anders' indifference, and reclaim power, or face irreversible collapse.
Emily sat alone in her office, the city skyline jagged against the night. The air was thick with tension, her systems were silent. Her mother was gone, permanently beyond reach. Anders' words replayed endlessly. You chose correctly. She would have slowed you down. The moral cost of that choice pressed down like a physical weight. Her phone buzzed, a secure message from Ethan. Emily, something's happening. I don't have the full picture, but it's urgent. Emily exhaled slowly. It was worse than she imagined. Valeria Sinclair wasn't just fast or unpredictable. She had a purpose. Valeria's goal wasn't power, it was leverage, exploiting gaps Anders had left and forcing the world to bend to her terms. Emily's stomach twisted. She almost reached for her mother's number, then remembered there was no one to answer. Rachel entered quietly. She's moving through channels we didn't account for. Every measure is bypassed. Even Anders can't stop her. Emily scanned fragmented charts, irregular transaction alerts, and suspicious communications. Her mind raced, connecting dots that weren't meant to connect. Every system, every safeguard, every contingency, fractured. She realized Anders' manipulation created variables she couldn't control. Valeria wasn't just a threat, she was a test of Emily's judgment, ethics, and agility. Emily moved quickly. One advisor hesitated, fingers hovering over a signed form. She recalibrated instantly, redirecting the transaction before a leak could occur. A payment almost routed through an unmonitored channel. Emily intercepted it mid-click, neutralizing the risk without alerting Anders or Valeria. She combined precision, risk, and moral calculus. She contained Valeria, not destroyed her, forcing her to act within limits she hadn't expected, proving Emily could adapt beyond rules and systems. Hours passed in tense silence. Every move mattered. One miscalculation could undo months of planning. Valeria's movements slowed, contained, but the threat remained. She had been checked, not eliminated. Emily knew it. Someone unbound by the rules was still in play.
Her phone buzzed again. Ethan. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she sent one precise order, her judgment, human and decisive. Activate Containment Protocol Gamma. Execute now. The action was symbolic and functional. She was no longer just a strategist or auditor. She was a human applying moral calculus to survive chaos. Anders' call came later. Emily answered, calm but alert. "You've adapted well," he said, his tone icy, measured. "Handled the unavoidable, sacrificed the necessary." Emily didn't flinch. "I'm done listening," she said. She had learned from his indifference. He would not guide her. He would only observe the consequences. He said nothing further. No warnings, no lectures. The silence was sufficient. Emily understood perfectly. He remained an inhuman, indifferent presence, her constant shadow. Finally, Emily stepped onto the rooftop. The city stretched below like fractured glass. Lights flickered, indifferent and unforgiving. She reached for the secure line one last time, issuing a micro-order that reflected her growth. Confirm Valeria's containment, monitor gaps, report anomalies. A small, active choice, human, precise, decisive. No narrative reflection, no speech, just action embodying evolution. She exhaled, letting the weight of loss, consequence, and moral responsibility. Her mother gone, Anders unchanged, Valeria contained but unbound. The world had shifted irreversibly. Emily's control was no longer a calculation. It was human judgment, ethical courage, and tactical mastery. A whisper of her mother's lessons surfaced. Power doesn't protect, choices do. She glanced at her office one last time, lights off. Stepping into the city below, she embraced the chaos she could not fully predict. She was ready. But the lingering danger remained. Some gaps remain, and Valeria knows them. Emily Carter had endured the unendurable. She had survived sacrifice, moral compromise, and unforeseen variables, and she had evolved. The reckoning was over. The fight, however, would continue.